welcome back once again to another episode of the Checkers or Wreckers podcast, ladies and gentlemen. I am your host with the most, Carter Leonard, and welcome to episode 32 of season 1 of the Checkers or Wreckers podcast, ladies and gentlemen. We have a lot in packed, or should I say we have a lot in store for today's episode, ladies and gentlemen, and you might want to grab your soda cans and Doritos bags because it's going to be a long one, as we have a lot of topics to uncover about not just this past weekend, but also a lot of other things, if you want me to be completely specific. But, yes, welcome back to another episode, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to be by myself once again for yet another week, ladies and gentlemen. Now, before we get into the meat and potatoes of this show, like the whole kit and caboodle, I just want to preference this. I want to mention two things. One, just because the past few weeks I've been doing episodes by myself does not mean that anybody else that have been in previous episodes before don't have any involvement of the show whatsoever. A lot of people are busy during these times, and with school starting back up, it could get pretty hectic with a lot of people's schedules, including my own, because I have to make time for this as well as many other things. So for people who are avid viewers of this show and constantly ask, why is there another host on the show, but yet it says co-host literally on the screen? Well, I just want to let you know that Adam and Prostate and everybody else who have been on the episodes as of late, they did not leave the project. They are still in this with me, so I just wanted to throw that out there in case anybody was concerned or anything like that. But with all that being said, ladies and gentlemen, let's get into the show now. Let's begin, shall we? And as with every single episode, every single week, we go to the weekend recap. This past weekend, the NASCAR Cup Series and Xfinity Series made their annual points race trip to Texas Motor Speedway, which, by the way, Texas Motor Speedway only has one date this year. Obviously, the other date, which was the All-Star race, was replaced by North Wilkesboro. Talk about poetic justice. But not only was it a normal Texas race, it was the first race of the round of 12, ladies and gentlemen. We are getting smaller and smaller with the playoff groups as we get closer to the season finale of Phoenix to decide who will hoist up the 2023 NASCAR Cup Series Championship Trophy at season's end. So it was the first race of the round of 12, and let's just say playoff drama was at an all-time high, ladies and gentlemen. But before we get into the finish of the race and even the winner, let's take a look at some of the stories going into this weekend. But first, let's talk about the Xfinity Series race. I completely blew over that. It was the second race of the Xfinity Series playoffs. The first driver to walk their spot into the next round was Justin Allgaier after his win at Bristol, which was a pick I got right. And I managed to get 3 Xfinity Series picks right in a row as John Hunter Nemechek captured his 7th victory of the 2023 season. I think I've really spoke enough about John Hunter Nemechek and how great of a season that he has had in comparison to some of the other strong Xfinity Series drivers out there like Austin Hill, Justin Allgaier, you name it. So, once again, it's another John Hunter Nemechek win. Can't really say that I was really surprised. Well, for one, he was my pick to start out before the weekend even began. And two, he was a winner in the Xfinity Series for Joe Gibbs Racing at Texas. So that really adds a lot of motivation to John Hunter Nemechek. But yeah, every time when John Hunter Nemechek wins an Xfinity Series race from now on, Legacy Motor Club smile continues to be brighter and brighter each time he pulls in the victory lane in that 20 car. But he wasn't the most dominant car of the day, believe it or not. Actually, the finish of the race was a pretty exciting one. It was between Parker Kligerman And I want to say, who was he battling with? I honestly forget. But Parker Kligerman was in the midst of the battle, and a lot of people were really upset that Parker Kligerman couldn't get the job done in the Xfinity Series race, even though I would love to see Parker Kligerman get a win with Big Machine Racing this year. I mean, he's literally in the playoffs, but, close but no cigar. The 20 car was just a faster car, so yeah. I have managed to get 3 Xfinity Series picks right in a row. I got John Hunter Nemechek at Kansas. I was going to go with Sammy Smith at Bristol, but I thought better of it and said, you know what, let's go with Justin Allgaier at Bristol. And once again, I got John Hunter Nemechek at Texas. So I have gone 3 in a row when it comes to Xfinity Series picks. I guess you could say I'm the Xfinity Series script writer. I have the script on me. It is literally on my desk as we speak. And, yeah, I can't wait to see how this season ends. Oh, and by the way, I'm predicting it, as a matter of fact. But yeah, once again, congratulations to John Hunter Nemechek and the entire group over at Joe Gibbs Racing. Now we can finally get into the Cup race. So before we get into the ending of the Cup race and how that whole finish played out and the storylines behind it this past weekend, we got to look at how this race began and how it started, because the day prior to the race, Bubba Wallace, who got into the round of 12, which I was not expecting at all before the playoffs started, got the pole at Texas Motor Speedway, which is his second career pole. Not this season, but of his career. So it was his second career pole, and I really thought to myself, I don't know if Bubba Wallace is going to win per se, but he definitely has a good shot of leaving Texas with a good finish, like a top 5 or a top 10. And boy, let me tell you, we got close to a Bubba Wallace victory on Sunday, ladies and gentlemen. But unfortunately, as my mic fell over, that's kind of embarrassing. Unfortunately, we were not able to witness that. So, but let's get into the finish of the race real quick. And William Byron, I don't know what it is with this dude, but it just seems like he is always in the right place at the right time. But we'll discuss more about that later on. I want to get into the finish of Texas real quick. So William Byron, not only did he capture his 6th win of the season, which is still a all-time career high for him in his young career, but he also captured the 300th victory of Hendrick Motorsports. I can't really say that I have spent a lot of time speculating, well, Hendrick's coming up on, 300 career wins in the Cup Series, who's going to get number 300. I didn't really spend a whole lot of time speculating on who was going to get it, because I just knew, regardless of if it was between Kyle Larson, Chase Elliott, William Byron, or Alex Bowman, someone was getting Hendrick Motorsports their 300th win. And for a second there, and for a majority of the whole race, it looked like it was going to be Kyle Larson, because Larson was the most dominant car of the day by far, besides the 23 of Bubba Wallace, which, by the way, for Bubba Wallace, not only did he get a pole, but he also had his career high in laps led, which I believe was 111. So, yeah, not a bad day for Bubba Wallace at all. But going back to William Byron for a second, it's his 6th win of the year. Congratulations to him, and congratulations to 300 wins for Hendrick Motorsports. The Big Hat, for the 6th time this year, is going to victory lane. I know a lot of people, when they see Byron win, they think the Big Hat thing that he does every time in victory lane is so absolutely cringy. Me personally, I like it. A lot of people these days, especially older fans of the sport, they would often complain that drivers don't have personality, or they don't show emotion, when they win. They don't do anything special. But William Byron, he created his own victory celebration, and that's the Big Hat celebration. And he's the only driver at Hendrick to do that. I don't see Kyle Larson doing it. I don't know if it's a Hendrick thing or it's a William Byron thing, but I would like to assume it's a William Byron thing. So, yeah, if that's what he's known for, then let him be. But if he wins the championship, I want to see an even bigger hat on his head. I want to see the I want to see the jumbo size hat. Like I want to see I want to see a bigger hat than what the big hats are that he has at Victory Lane. If you want me to be clear about that, but yeah, for Hendrick Motorsports for this race, it was either going to be between Kyle Larson or William Byron winning this race, and we all know William Byron won, but it looked like it was going to be Larson's race for him to win and to lock himself up into the round of 8. Now, why didn't he? I literally mentioned earlier that he was the most dominant car of the day, got some stage points, and was running up front when it mattered most. Why didn't he win? Well, during the late race restarts between him and Bubba Wallace, going into turn 1, Kyle Larson spun underneath Bubba Wallace, trying to go in too hard, and he spun out and backing it into the outside wall in turns 1 and 2, basically ending his day. He could have walked away with the win, or at the very least, a top 3 finish, but instead, he leaves with a 31st place finish, and currently, as of right now, as of September 29th, 2023, I'm looking at the official playoff points. He currently sits only 2 points above the cut line. And by the way, Larson was not the only driver of the race that had, or the only playoff driver, I should say, that had multiple problems, that just shitty luck all day. So there was Kyle Busch, who backed it into the outside wall virtually the same way that Larson did later in the race. At the end of stage 1, Martin Truex Jr. Got caught up in got spun at the end of stage 2, like as soon as the caution came out heading into turn 1. It didn't really affect his car, but it affected his day of getting a good finish. I just don't know what it is with the 19 team as of right now, how they can't really seem to find a speed in the playoffs, because, they are literally the regular season champions. And I know that they're not a first-round exit team. Obviously, we saw how Bristol played out. But it is kind of disappointing how you go into the playoffs with that much momentum, and then it just doesn't show. Like, you nearly got eliminated in the first round. Like, the 19 is just, I mean, going to these next 2 tracks, which, by the way, are, for Martin Truex Jr. standards, not his best tracks. So it's going to be very interesting to see how it plays out. I mean, he's not really in a bad point situation as of right now. He currently sits, I believe, 5th or 6th in the point standings, which for most drivers is a good situation. But for some other people, it's not. It's you would like to be advanced. The safest place you could be in the playoffs is if you win a race and you advance. That's the only safe part. Everything else, if you're really, really good on points, then you might get there. But other than that, it's a no-go. It's a very big no-go. Tyler Reddick ended up winning the stage, but he did not have a great finish at the end after smacking the wall. So he currently sits below the cut line in points, even though he definitely had that stage point earlier. So just needed a lot more out of it. So, like I said earlier, Texas was no stranger to playoff drama, but I will say that the Texas race this year had a lot better finish and a lot better circumstances, like last year, unlike last year where there were so many tire blowouts, Alex Bowman getting the concussion, but we didn't know about it until days later, and so on and so forth. So, obviously, I'm not a big fan of Texas Motor Speedway. I don't think really anyone is at this point. So, yeah, it's just, it's whatever. So that will do it for the weekend recap of the show, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, it's just, Texas is just odd to me. It's a very, very odd thing to me. Another odd thing to me is the William Byron is lucky narrative. We talked about William Byron, who is the most recent winner of the Cup Series on the show. He has 6 wins so far this year and is currently looking like one of the championship favorites going in, to the playoffs. So, but why am I calling William Byron lucky? Or is William Byron lucky? And there's also another narrative that I'm going to get into later on about his teammate Kyle Larson and if he's not clutch. But going to William Byron for a second, we have been noticing a recent trend when it comes to William Byron's wins this year. Some of the wins that he has had have been earned, and some of them have been right place, right time scenarios. Let's look at his wins one by one for a second. Las Vegas was his first win of the year. He led 175 laps, swept both stages, but it looked like at the end that it was going to be Kyle Larson winning the race as he kind of stole it from underneath his feet. But after a late race restart where Byron got the lead, Byron went off with the win and picked up his first win of the year. Then, literally the next week, his second win of the year at Phoenix. He won stage one. Larson and Harvick were the two most dominant cars. A late race caution came out, and William Byron had a really good restart. He wasn't even in the front row. He was like third or fourth on back, somewhere around there. Had a really good restart, had a very clutch moment, and William Byron got the win. Darlington, once again, it was another Kyle Larson misfortune. This time, it was at the hands of Ross Chastain, who basically took him and Larson out of contention, took himself out of contention. If you want me to elaborate on that, and William Byron got up front on the restart. He was the best car out of the rest of the field behind him. Went on the win at Darlington to pick up his third win of the year. Now, I would say Atlanta is a very lucky win for him, but then again, a lot of rain-shortened races are, so I'm going to dismiss that. It's a rain-shortened race, rain-shortened win. I'm not going to count that. Watkins Glen, he was the most dominant car of the day. He definitely earned that win, which was his fifth win of the season. And then you come to Texas, his sixth win of the year, and it comes at another five-car misfortune and a very good late race restart to put himself out in front, beating other playoff drivers like Ross Chastain and Bubba Wallace to pick up yet another win to lock himself into the round of 8. Now, for all those who just pay attention to me listing out all of his wins, majority of his wins have come at good fortune. Now, I'm not saying that William Byron is not always a luck fortune. There is times where he has a really, really fast car and he could dominate. But you cannot deny that William Byron is always at the right place at the right time. Is it too early to call William Byron the new closer, perhaps? Like, Kevin Harvick, majority of his wins throughout his career have come at the right place at the right time. I mean, he's called the closer for a reason. So, I mean, if we're going to give anybody else that name, when Kevin Harvick, eventually hangs it up at the end of this year, I think William Byron is the number one candidate to go for. And, it's very interesting to me how, he definitely has top 5 and top 10 speed, but, we never really look at him. Like, there's certain points at, the end of the races, like I just mentioned previously, that we never thought to ourselves, yeah, William Byron's definitely going to win. When there's a lot better cars out front, but sometimes there's just goofy things that happen. And, a lot of his wins this year have come based off of goofy things, which some of the time has been from his teammate Kyle Larson. So, do I believe William Byron is lucky or actually that good? In my opinion, it's split. I definitely think that William Byron is a championship level threat with how he's done this year. But do I think he's a little bit lucky sometimes? Judging based off how he wins these races this year, it's kind of hard not to say no. I mean, the proof is literally in the pudding. Now, I'm not hating on William Byron based on the luck that he has or the fortune that he has if other drivers are misfortunate. But, we can't deny that it's there. So, I mean, I guess William Byron is just clutch. I mean, if you want me to be specific, I guess William Byron is just clutch. So, I guess that's one way of looking at it. So, that's Yeah, this was something that I definitely wanted to talk about because I like I wanted to talk about it like a couple of weeks prior, but I wanted to wait until like something else miraculous happened with William Byron, which was his Texas win, might I add, which he was in the right place at the right time. So yeah, he's good, but he could get very lucky at times. So I'm not gonna say that he always backs into every single win that he has. He has 10 career wins so far. I'm sure he'll earn many more down the line, considering that he's only 25 years old. He's still, in race car terms, pretty young. So, yeah, a lot of people were really discussing the if William Byron is lucky narrative, and you know what? To some extent, it's true. So, yeah, that'll do it for that topic, ladies and gentlemen. Now let's get into his teammate for a second, and that is Kyle Larson. And here's another Hendrick Motorsports driver narrative. Is Kyle Larson not clutch? Like, when you look at Kyle Larson's 2023 season, and from a fan standpoint, which is what I am, a fan standpoint, his stats are looking like, the average Larson season. Multiple wins, a lot of top fives, a lot of top tens, a lot of stage points. You expect Larson to do very, very well. But a lot of people, are surprised that he only has 3 wins, which isn't a bad thing. A lot of drivers in the Cup Series as of right now currently have 3 wins on their season. But there have been times this year where Larson should have had more wins than meets the eye. I mean, we're talking like Las Vegas, Phoenix, Kansas, Darlington. I mean, the list goes on. And you know what? It's true. I mean, Larson should have about like 5 or 6 wins by now. And so we ask ourselves, well, why isn't he winning these races when it comes down to like very crucial moments? And I can't really say what the exact reason is because God only knows. I don't know if it's just the luck of the draw or if he's not really, which I'm not going to call Kyle Larson bad. I mean, he's one of the best race car drivers I've ever seen in the 21st century. So, but we are noticing a pattern, and that's the checkers or wreckers pattern. Hint, hint, the name of our podcast. But no, in all seriousness, though, Larson has either won races or crashed the car trying. I get that's a Talladega Nights quote, but, for Larson's season, it's pretty damn true. I mean, there's been times where Larson should have had the certain race won, and then just misfortune comes his way. He ends up wrecking or ends up falling back for some odd reason. I mean, I feel bad for all Larson fans out there, but at the same time, I kind of don't because you guys are just a tiny, 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 tiny bit spoiled. But that's neither here nor there. I'm talking about Larson, the driver, not Larson's fan base. Again, all jokes aside, just for fun, ladies and gentlemen, just for fun. But Larson, like I said, I don't understand why he just can't close out these races, because this past weekend at Texas, had it went green the whole entire way, Kyle Larson is winning this race 100%. And no one can argue with that theory. But not only Texas, but there's been times where he's been leading in the late stages of the race, bam, there's a caution to come out, and you expect, since he's the fastest car on the racetrack, that he should be able to, blast away on the restart and just not look back and head the victory lane. Ideally, yes. But you look at the times where he's had to do late race restarts this year, I don't think he's won a single one of those races. Correct me if I'm wrong. The only time where he did was his first win of the year that came at Richmond, which was a late race restart. So, but other than that, when it comes down to crucial moments, he's just not been able to not necessarily perform to the highest level, which he can, but it's just he just can't close it out for some reason. So, to answer the question, do I think that Kyle Larson isn't clutch? Not really. And here's why. Because I think Larson, because we really have to look at the definition of clutch. See, my personal definition of clutch is when it comes to sports, like when it comes to like a sports definition is when a crucial moment comes, someone or a team of members rise to the occasion and they seal the deal when it matters most. That's my definition of clutch. I mean, your guys' definition of clutch when it comes to sports terms may differ than what I have, but that's my definition. And quite frankly, there's been times where Larson just hasn't fit that mold. Now, I will say in all fairness, it's not always been his fault. But Texas this past weekend, it kind of was. I mean, he drove in a little too hard, and he spun himself and backed up into the wall. And before anybody says, Bubba Wallace may come... No, he didn't. The replay clearly shows that Larson just drove in a little too deep, and he even admitted it too. Larson said that he made a mistake, and he promises never to do it again. But, obviously mistakes happen. I don't think that Larson is unclutch per se, but there's just been times where he's just not been lucky, I guess. So, but you have to be clutch in those moments. You have to clutch yourself on a late race restart and get yourself the win or get yourself a top 5. So, yeah. But yeah, that'll do it for the narrative part of the show, ladies and gentlemen. Moving on, we had some news come out this week about some sponsorship, and it's quite frankly the most fun sponsorship that you could possibly think of if you're a NASCAR fan. Coming out of Stewart-Haas Racing this weekend is Talladega, of course, and what would be better than to have two of your cars share paint schemes from the movie Talladega Nights, The Ballad of Ricky Bobby? Well, Chase Briscoe and Ryan Preece are doing just that, as Ryan Preece will have the Wonder Bread scheme based off of the Ricky Bobby car in the movie run this weekend at Talladega, as well as Chase Briscoe doing the Cal Naughton Jr. Old Spice paint scheme from the movie as well. Obviously, I love it when teams actually do this. 2012, for example, Phoenix Racing, when they were struggling for money and they had Kurt Busch as their driver, they did the little me car from the movie as well at Talladega during this 2012 spring race. So that was always, I remember that vividly. So that's always fun. I love it when they do paint schemes from movies. I remember William Byron did a Cold Trickle scheme from the movie Days of Thunder and a Darlington throwback race, which was pretty cool as well. Talladega Nights, it's not necessarily my favorite racing movie of all time, but I definitely think that the movie is fun. It's a comedy. I love Will Ferrell. I love John C. Reilly. So the film is a very memorable film for me. If you're a NASCAR fan or not, it's like that film has been plastered in the mainstream media. Yeah, the jokes kind of do get repetitive every now and then, but I just wanted to share this because I think it's very, very cool that they're doing this. I mean, it's very, very fitting. I would definitely love to see one of those cars get in the victory lane, even though not any of those drivers are playoff drivers, so I think that would be very, very cool. But yeah, I just wanted to share that because that's a very fun little paint scheme thing. So yeah, that's some paint scheme news for you, even though I hardly ever do it. So yeah, that'll do it for the return of Shake and Bake, ladies and gentlemen. Now let's get into some silly season news regarding the NASCAR Xfinity Series. Junior Motorsports had one spot open after it was announced that Josh Berry would go up to the Cup Series for Stewart-Haas Racing. And we all pondered the question of, well, who's going to fill that seat? But as of the recent past few weeks, Junior Motorsports started announcing the signing of drivers. They announced Sam Mayer would return to the 1 car. Brandon Jones would return to the 9 car. After his Bristol win, Justin Allgaier would return to the 7 car for Junior Motorsports. But we all asked ourselves, who would drive the 8 car? for Junior Motorsports in 2024 in the Xfinity Series? Well, they finally got their driver, as it was announced that Joe Gibbs Racing driver Sammy Smith signs with Junior Motorsports to drive the number 8 car for the 2024 season. I think this is a very, very good move for Junior Motorsports. But first and foremost, let's talk about the move itself, because not only are you getting a driver who's really, really talented, even though a lot of people have looked at Sammy Smith this year as the guy who's been wrecking a lot, even though he did pick up a win at Phoenix to lock himself into the playoffs, Sammy Smith has proven that he is very, very talented. You could look at his ARCA days. Yeah, it's ARCA, but he had an insane average finish despite not running all the races until he was 18 years old, because he was still 17 at the time. Before we got into the midway point of the year, he was still a senior in high school, which is crazy to me how young Sammy Smith is. But Junior Motorsports is getting a really good driver, but not only are you getting a really talented race car driver, you're also getting a lot of funding behind it. Pilot Flying J is returning to Junior Motorsports, as they have been a partner with them before. They take a 2-year absence after, not sponsoring a driver, but they are returning to Junior Motorsports for 2024. You may recognize them off of Michael Annette's car when he drove for the team. But let me just say this about Sammy Smith. I think that, this is actually really shocking to me, because I think this is a good move for Junior Motorsports. I think it's a good move for Sammy Smith. But let's look at the long-term picture for Sammy Smith. I think he could win races and a championship in the Xfinity Series with either Joe Gibbs Racing or Junior Motorsports. But his long-term future is very, very questionable, and I will say why. Because looking at what Sammy Smith had at Joe Gibbs Racing, so had he stayed at Joe Gibbs Racing, his path forward was pretty straightforward, actually, because if you look at Joe Gibbs Racing's current Cup Series roster as of right now, you have 2 young drivers, that being Christopher Bell and rookie Ty Gibbs, who are the future of the team. Christopher Bell's 28, Ty Gibbs is going to be 21 here soon. So yeah, those drivers are the future of Joe Gibbs Racing. Then you have Denny Hamlin, who signed a multi-year deal that might be 2-3 years at Joe Gibbs Racing. Even though he's 43 years old, he's still performing at a very high level. Then you have Martin Truex Jr., who has postponed retirement more times than I could count, and he's only good through the whole 2024 season. I mean, his retirement could be any year now. He could retire at the end of the 2024 season. So, there were 2 possible rides that Sammy Smith could have taken had he stayed in the Xfinity Series, and pretty straightforward. Now, why am I saying that? Why am I saying this? Well, because if you look at Chevy's current lineup in the Cup Series going from 2024 to beyond, there's not really anywhere Sammy Smith can go to when he's officially Cup Series ready. Like, he should be Cup Series ready right around 2025, 2026 at the very latest. But when it comes to Sammy, there is no rides open as of right now. Hendrick Motorsports, they're good through majority of their drivers are good through 2025, 2026, 2027. Those drivers are going to get extended more than that. You could already bet your money on that. Trackhouse Racing, they now have 4 drivers but only 2 seats. They just signed Zane Smith and Shane Van Gisbergen. They will be a 3-car team for 2025, but Sammy Smith is not going to be there. Colleague Racing, their future's still up in the air. Richard Childress Racing, they have Austin Dillon and Kyle Busch. Unless they open up a 3rd charter for Sammy Smith, I don't see him going to RCR. Although that would be pretty cool, because I like both Kyle Busch and Sammy Smith, but that's neither here nor there. There's not a whole lot of teams that he can really go to that's Chevy related. I've heard a lot of people say that, Alex Bowman can hit the curb. But then again, Alex Bowman signed a contract extension through the 2026 season. And Ally, his sponsor, has signed with Hendrick Motorsports for the 2028 season. So, as of right now, which I'm sure Sammy Smith is only looking at what's in front of him as of right now, which is compete in the Xfinity Series, win races, and go for championships, which, that should be your goal. But when it comes to long term, I mean, obviously a lot can change in like a span of a year. I mean, like, I don't even have to really explain, how we all thought things were going to go their way in the sport, but then it went the complete opposite. Like, I don't really think I need to go on a whole tangent about that. Like, a lot could change from now. But as I'm sitting watching this move, which it's like Eric Estep said, it's a lateral move. I know a lot of people in this, a lot of people who are watching this podcast get tired of me talking about Eric Estep, but I'm a big fan of his. But he called it a lateral move. A lateral move, which what I mean by lateral move is that it's not really a downgrade of what teams he's going to. I think both Junior Motorsports and Joe Gibbs Racing are like two, basically the same. They win races, they win championships. But when it comes to long-term future, had he stayed at Joe Gibbs Racing, it's likely he would have filled one of those seats. His path forward was pretty straightforward. If asking me, I think he will find a ride in the Cup Series with Chevy, but as of right now, it's deadlocked. Now let's go from the positive side, which is a W for Chevy and yet another L for Toyota. I know a couple weeks ago, or a week ago, I should say, that we made fun of Ford for their prospect list not being as long. But once again, Toyota loses out on a very, very good prospect. I mean, let's look at some of the prospects that they have lost for the past few years. I mean, Sammy Smith is one of them. Chandler Smith is one of them. But one of their main Toyota prospects as of right now is John Hunter Nemechek. He's going to Cup racing next year for Legacy Motor Club. You lose Chandler Smith. You lose Sammy Smith. No relation, by the way. You lose... you lose Harrison Burton. You lose Noah Gregson. You lose Christian Eckes. You lose, there's been a lot of times where Toyota has lost a lot of good prospects, and which, again, Toyota has a shit ton of prospects, but the problem is there's not enough seats, and that's why they really talked about having to expand their Cup lineup, because they're going to go from 6 to 8 cars next year, that being the Legacy Motor Club move, because they really want to expand. And who knows, 2311, they might expand soon, so you might have possibly 9 to 10 cars of Toyota. So that's one way of looking at it. But looking at the prospect thing that they do, where they lose prospects, and a lot of people make fun of them for it, I really think, here's the thing. So as of right now, their Xfinity Series lineup for Joe Gibbs Racing. Joe Gibbs Racing is the main, Toyota Xfinity Series team, as we know. But looking at their lineups as of right now, it's completely empty. You have 3 cars. You have 2 full-time cars, and you have the All-Star car, which is Cup drivers of Toyota coming down, or some drivers trying to make part-time Xfinity Series starts from the Truck Series or somewhat. So we're looking at Joe Gibbs Racing's Xfinity Series lineup of what it could potentially be. And after the Sammy Smith move, I immediately said, "Oh, Corey Heim. Corey Heim. That's definitely a guy you need to go after." Because currently Corey Heim, besides Sammy Smith, even though I don't really count him anymore because he's going to go to Chevy, he is Toyota's best prospect. I mean, you look at how consistent and how good he's doing in the Truck Series as of right now. He's literally going to go fight for a championship. He has a championship 4 spot locked up. You would love to have Corey Heim. But the problem is, Bob Pockers tweeted out that it looks like Corey Heim might do another year of the Truck Series. Not because, so from what I'm getting from that is, not necessarily because he wants to do another year, but because, from what I'm getting, Corey Heim does not have a lot of funding, which is absolutely insane to me because, you see him with the Safe Light sponsors, the Rootly sponsors, but then again, those sponsors are Tricon sponsors. They'll sponsor literally anyone who steps foot in their truck. Corey Heim really doesn't have a lot of big-time individual sponsors, Maybe that could change during the offseason. Maybe Joe Gibbs Racing could probably look at him and say, hey, you know what, we want to sign you, but, we're going to have to find some sponsorship for you. So if Corey Heim isn't the answer, which he should be, he should get an Xfinity Series ride. Who is? And, their options are pretty limited as of right now when it comes to young talent. In that Bob Parker's tweet, he mentions that the All-Star car will primarily be the same. And actually, John Hunter Nemechek and Ty Gibbs, considering that they don't have a 3-year Cup Series career as of yet, they could run as many Xfinity Series races for Joe Gibbs Racing as they want. Because after 3 seasons, you're only limited to 5 races a year. So I would expect them to be in the All-Star car. But for full-time drivers, I don't know who to go to. Ryan Truex? Yeah, like Ryan Truex, he got that win at Dover. But then again, it took him over a decade to win an Xfinity Series race. Trevor Bayne, I don't really have a problem with Trevor Bayne per se, but it's all about sponsorship, really. And Bob Parker's also mentioned the young driver William Sawalich, who is the ARCA driver as of right now, who recently just clinched the ARCA Menard Series East title, and he's winning some races in the main ARCA division. And it is speculated by within 2025 that he will be in the Xfinity Series. So I guess William Sawalich is part of the future of Joe Gibbs Racing, I guess. But then again, that's 2025. That's 2 years from now. We're talking about next year. Does Ryan Truex and Trevor Bayne keep the seats warm for Corey Heim and William Sawalich until they're ready? I mean, that's kind of a wasted year. Again, I may be overlooking this. I may be, I don't know. A lot of people do want to see those drivers get into Xfinity Series rides. But then again, there's better drivers out there. There's Jesse Love, but I don't expect him to be in the Xfinity Series next year. So Toyota's prospects are kind of limited as of right now as to what they could do because, if we're only limited down to Ryan Truex and Trevor Bayne, who aren't long-term drivers for when Denny Hamlin and Martin Truex Jr. retire, which I believe John Hunter Nemechek will be back into the Joe Gibbs Racing lineup, but just in the Cup Series, I ask, that Legacy Motor Club number 42, that's another spot that could be open. 2311 Racing opening up another charter. That could be, another spot. So, but as of right now, the prospects are only limited as to what they can do as of right now. So, yeah, I mean, currently as of right now, and it's the same thing as last year, when Brandon Jones left for Junior Motorsports and Ty Gibbs left for the Cup Series, Joe Gibbs Racing really had to look and see, because their Xfinity Series lineup was empty and they had to get Sammy Smith and John Hunter Nemechek. Now, once again, they're back to where they were. One's leaving for Cup, the other's leaving for another Xfinity Series team. So it'll be very interesting to see what Joe Gibbs and Toyota's future prospects look like as, in the coming years. I expect Corey Heim and William Sawalich to be Toyota Cup drivers in the future, but, who knows? Names could change. Well, with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, we have some more Xfinity Series news regarding Hendrick Motorsports and their number 17 car, as it was announced earlier this week, as actually the same day as Sammy Smith announced his move to Junior Motorsports, that Boris said, and Raja Caruth will drive the HMS number 17 car for 2 select races at the Charlotte Roval, that being Boris Said's race, and Phoenix Raceway, which is the season finale, that being Raja Caruth's race. So this is a very interesting thing to look at. It's not the biggest news in the world, but I wanted to add this in. Boris said, a road course rainer, obviously. He has a win in the Xfinity Series back in 2009, I believe. It was that close finish at Montreal where he beat Marcos Ambrose by just mere inches. So he does have a win. He is over 60 years old, though, and he did come out and say, if I do really well, that will most likely be my final NASCAR race. So, he did make a Cup start as of recently. I believe it was either this year or last year, when it was for the 66 of MBM Motorsports. So, he's been in NASCAR as of recently. But I'm more excited about Rajah Caruth, who is literally the polar opposite of what Borset is. Rajah's 21 years old. He's one of the young prospects in this sport as of right now. He currently drives in the Truck Series for GMS Racing. This is actually going to be a very, very good measuring stick for Rajah, because as of right now, there's been times where Rajah has shown flashes in the Truck Series where, there's been times where I've seen him run up inside the top 5, but the finishes don't dictate how good he ran. I mean, there was a time where he could have gotten a top 5 at Darlington. Like, he was literally third as Christian Eckes, and I believe I don't know who else was battling with him, but that they were literally battling for the win, and Rajah Caruth was literally right there. He did recently get a 6th place finish at Bristol, which was another top 10 for him. So this is going to be a very interesting opportunity for him, because the HMS 17 car is basically a junior motorsports car. It's it's meant to be one of the quicker cars out there. So I'm very interested in this. I'm very interested to see how Boris and Rajah do. Like I said, Boris said this is just a little fun activity he wants to do. But for Rajah, this could be a very, very big opportunity for him to prove that he could be someone. Like, if he gets a top 5 or top 10 in that ride, then that's a job well done for Rajah. I'm very interested to see how he's going to do in that ride. I'm not saying he's going to go full-time with, Hendrick back in an Xfinity next year, but, it's a very good opportunity for him it's a good measuring stick to see where he's at, to see where he lines up against other Chevy prospects or any other prospect out there when it comes to the lower division. But with that being said, we have more news, ladies and gentlemen, and it was a bombshell of news. Now, it was rumored for the whole week, but I took it with a very, very, very big grain of salt because of the Twitter user behind this news. No, I will not share the name of the Twitter account. I try to keep it family-friendly around here. Who am I kidding? I cuss a lot. So, Private Porno 69 reported, which, by the way, I'm not joking. This guy has some decent sources within him. After this, I can officially qualify him as a decent source when it comes to this sort of stuff. That's Spire Motorsports and their truck organization would buy Kyle Busch Motorsports. At first, I didn't believe this news. I didn't believe it at first, because I was just like, okay, well, they might buy something, but I highly doubt that they're going to buy the whole team. You know what I mean? Like, I highly doubt that. But this past Thursday, it was made official that Spire Motorsports will be buying all of Kyle Busch's Motorsports assets. I mean, the truck team and the entire building in of itself. Let's talk about Kyle Busch Motorsports real quick, as it's going to be a very somber ending. Kyle Busch started his Truck Series team all the way back in 2010, and let's just say it was a very, very successful road for him owning that team, because, I mean, the amount of wins that he got for the team, but also other prospects that have come through and won races and contended for championships with that Truck Series team. I mean, some of the guys who are currently in the Cup Series as of right now have come through Kyle Busch Motorsports, like Christopher Bell, William Byron, Eric Jones, Harrison Burton. I would say Noah Gragson, but he's not in Cup as of right now. The list goes on and on. I mean, Kyle Busch Motorsports has definitely played a big role in helping some of the current Cup Series drivers propel their careers into bigger and better opportunities. So, for any fan of those drivers who I just mentioned, guess what? You could thank Kyle Busch for giving them the opportunity. But I am very sad by this, considering I'm a big Kyle Busch fan, and I I hate to see this Truck Series team go, and I'm going to pull up the official statement release by Kyle Busch Motorsports, and let's see, where is it at? It reads as this. When we started the Truck Series team back in 2010, I never imagined that we would be able to win 100 races with 18 different drivers, and that one day I'd be racing in the Cup Series alongside so many drivers I once mentored at KBM. It took countless hours by so many amazing people to make KBM the winningest team in Truck Series history. Thank you to my family, our employees, our amazing sponsors, and both Chevy and Toyota for all of their dedication and hard work over the years. I'm at a different point in my life now than I was back in 2010. My family has grown, my Cup Series team changed this year, and our son's racing schedule has become as demanding as my own. It's important to me to be able to spend more time with my family and my Richard Childress Racing 8 team. It'll be hard to walk away from the amazing facility we've built. I'll miss walking the shop floor, talking with everyone, hosting our fan days in the lobby, and spending countless hours there ensuring its success. However, I know at this point in my life and in my career that this is the correct decision. So there's a lot to unpack right there. I mean, never would I have thought that Kyle Busch would sell his own Truck Series team, considering that he worked so hard on that. I mean, literally built that team from the ground up. I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but he definitely got a lot of support from former Truck Series owner Willy B, correct me if I'm wrong, to get his Truck Series program started. And, you know, they have made that team into the winningest organization in Truck Series history. I mean, when you think of the Truck Series, you automatically think of Kyle Busch Motorsports as one of the main contenders week in and week out. Obviously, it was a different year for them this year. They no longer had the Toyota backing. All the Toyota sponsors that they had, I mean, JBL, Safelite, there's multiple other sponsors that were affiliated with that team. They went over the Tricon Garage, which became the new priority source when it comes to Toyota racing development in the Truck Series. And Kyle Busch Motorsports was left with guys like Chase Purdy and Jack Wood to fill in, for, the team. And they did not have a lot of sponsorship. Well, they did, but not as much sponsorship as they would have hoped for with the brand new team. So I don't know if that was necessarily a reason for that. I would consider Chase Purdy and Jack Wood both two very big paid drivers, considering that Chase Purdy has Bama buggies and Jack Wood has whatever he has. Please excuse me, there is a fire truck passing by. Hopefully that did not get into the audio. But while it's a very sad and somber end for Kyle Busch Motorsports, I will never forget the memories that I've had watching that Truck Series team go out and win races week in and week out. So rest in peace, Kyle Busch Motorsports. But let's talk about Spire Motorsports, as I moved my mic out of the way for the 50th time when I'm doing this show. Not this episode, obviously, but when I'm doing other episodes. But when it comes to teams that have made a lot of moves this past month, one name in particular has stand out, and that is Spire Motorsports. Because, let me backtrack for a second here. When you think of teams that are going to make moves, Spire was not one of those teams. I mean, let's recap for a second of the moves they made. First of all, they re-signed Corey LaJoie, which was most likely going to happen. And what's the interesting part about LaJoie's re-signing is that he had multiple offers from like big name Cup teams to go drive for them. And Corey LaJoie turned them all down and decided to stick in the 7 for however long his contract is in that multi-year deal. And you're like wondering, like, well, what exactly does he see at Spire compared to the other big teams that he got offers from? And so the LaJoie re-signing is one thing. If the news and rumors are true, Carson Hocevar most likely will be in the 77 for next year. If the rumors are true, he most likely will be in the Cup Series next year. Then there was the big announcement of them purchasing Live Fast Motorsports Charter and using it as an alliance with Trackhouse Racing to get Zane Smith's a full year of Cup experience under his belt. So now they are a 3-car organization heading into next year. And now their Truck Series organization buys one of the biggest Truck Series teams and becomes the new main priority when it comes to Chevy's development in the Truck Series, because both KBM and GMS Racing, the 2 top Chevy truck teams, are no longer going to be a thing next year. The 2 top Chevy teams now are going to be Spire at number 1, considering that they're going to get the equipment and assets that make KBM really, really solid, along with some solid drivers here and there. And then number 2 is going to be Bill McAnally's Truck Series team. So what is Spire cooking right now? Because Spire has made a lot of interesting moves. Like, what this tells me is that Spire is not messing around. They're not, like, they literally took the phrase F around and find out. They took that phrase to heart. Like, they're expanding quickly. Not only are they going to have 3 cars in the Cup Series, but they're also going to have 3 trucks in the Truck Series. As far as their Truck Series lineup for next year, I don't know. It's still TBD. I would assume that Nick Sanchez, who was the Rev Racing driver, who currently is in partnership with KBM, I expect him to fill one of those rights. And he also has the Game Bridge sponsorship, which is a Spire sponsor, which, by the way, if you don't believe me when I say this, then I don't know what else to tell you. Game Bridge has played a major factor in all of this. And you cannot sit back and convince me otherwise. Like, ever since Game Bridge came on as a sponsor for Spire Motorsports, the whole outlook for this team has changed. Like, they are planning for big things in the future. And I honestly, like, I'm holding my hands together when I say this. I don't know. They're not going to be a championship contender as of yet. No, I'm not saying that. But let me tell you, man, this team is making moves, and they are here to stay. There's just no way that you can create all of these moves, buy a charter, which no other team was willing to do besides you, because you had the financial support behind it. You cannot tell me that all of these moves that you are making as of right now can't result in, like, the tiniest of success. I expect them to win Truck Series races next year, believe it or not. I expect them to do that. Nick Sanchez, I expect to be in their lineup next year. Chase Purdy is in contract with KBM. I think that contract potentially gets translated over to Spire. The 3rd truck, it could be an all-star truck. It could be another full-time truck. We have no clue. But all I got to say about this is that Spire is here to play. Spire Motorsports is here to play, ladies and gentlemen. And, you cannot convince me otherwise that they are going to be contenders in the future. I don't know if they're going to win races in Cup for 2024. But, Spire has definitely been a fun team to watch when it comes to making moves regarding next year. Buying a 3rd charter, signing one of the best prospects as of right now in Carson Hocevar, if that is true. Then buying one of the best Truck Series teams out there. Like, holy smoke, Spire, calm down. We get it. We know you're here, man. So, yeah, that's absolutely insane to me. But that'll do it for that segment of the show, ladies and gentlemen, as we are going to get into the final segment, ladies and gentlemen, and that is race picks, ladies and gentlemen. Pretty damn simple. We look at the races ahead this weekend of each touring series, and we see and predict who is going to win. This weekend, ladies and gentlemen, it is Talladega. It is the second race of the round of 12 for the NASCAR Cup Series playoffs. Once again, win, and you're automatically into the next round. But before we do that, we have to look at the Truck Series second round of 8 race, I believe, for the Truck Series playoffs, which, by the way, wait, hold on. Quick pause and quick intermission right here, ladies and gentlemen. I did not mean to get into race picks right here, ladies and gentlemen. This is me from the future, believe it or not. I quickly edited this in. But now we could sit down and talk about the schedule for next year's NASCAR Cup Series, as we have two new confirmed dates, ladies and gentlemen. I did not want to get too ahead of myself in this episode, but unfortunately, as you saw in the footage right there, I did. So I completely forgot about the new schedules, things that are going on. So let's get into the nitty gritty of the new schedule updates and stuff like that. So yesterday, ladies and gentlemen, it was announced that the Brickyard 400 would be returning for the first time since the 2020 season. The past 3 years, we have ran on the Indy Road Course, which has given us our fair share of wackiness and silliness, ladies and gentlemen. This year's race was pretty tame, however, but a lot of people were really advocating for the Brickyard 400 to come back. And, well, the race fans who wish for this race to come back is getting their wish. Now, how do I feel about the Brickyard 400 returning? Which, by the way, is the 30th anniversary of the 1994 Brickyard 400, which was won by Jeff Gordon. But how do I feel about the Brickyard 400 returning? I am going to keep it honest with you. I am very, very mixed on this decision, because this goes to show that NASCAR fans, still to this day, the year of our Lord, 2023, still can't decide on what they want and what they don't want. Because the same people who advocated for this race to come back after they saw how bad the road course was. Oh my God, I need to stop moving my air filter out of the way. For seeing how bad the road course was, they are the same people that wanted to try the road course and then ditch the Brickyard 400 completely. And I'm going to say this right here, right now. If next year's Brickyard 400 is not a good showing, not a good race, I do not want to hear a single fan complain. And I understand a lot of people have a lot of rights to complain about certain things regarding sports. But, however, you are choosing for this race to return next year. If it's anyone's fault, it's your own. That's all I'm going to say about the return of the Brickyard 400, which, by the way, will be run on July 1st, 2024, which is right around the time when the Summer Olympics of 2024 began. And the day prior to the Brickyard 400 next year will be the Xfinity Series, as they will run on the Oval as well. The Truck Series, I would assume, would still be at IRP, of course. But, yeah, that's some pretty big news regarding the 2024 schedule, as we have another confirmed date. And we also have a second confirmed date regarding the All-Star race. And to the surprise of no one, North Wilkesboro will be returning to the All-Star race next year on May 19th. And the day prior, as of this just like this year, I need to slow down when I talk. Just like this year, the Truck Series will be the race the day before the All-Star race on Sunday, which is May 19th. The Truck Series race will be May 18th. But there's also some other news regarding the All-Star race, is that it will be a freshly repaved North Wilkesboro Speedway because the NC State budget has donated $4 million into other renovations that the track may need, even though it looks like it's completely brand new. The track still needs some renovations here and there, and a repave is definitely one of them because, believe it or not, ladies and gentlemen, the last time in North Wilkesboro was repaved, Ronald Reagan was your president. Yeah. Over 25 years ago. That is almost insane to think about, if you want me to be completely honest. But I definitely think that the repave might help in some way when it comes to the All-Star race. But after the snooze fest that we kind of saw in this year's All-Star race, I'm kind of glad that we're going to get a repave. So, yeah, that $4 million will be spent into a repave. So that is nice to see. Nice to see North Wilkesboro get some love from the NC State budget after the $18 million donation that was made, and also the additional $4 million going into any other additional, utilities or, any additional upgrades. So, yeah, I wanted to get this quick segment in of the podcast. I forgot to do it, but yeah, back to our regularly scheduled program where I give out my race picks. But this weekend, ladies and gentlemen, it is the Truck Series race at Talladega. I forgot the name of the race, but, all we know is that the Truck Series is running this weekend, and I'm kind of sad that the Xfinity Series race isn't either, considering that we literally have done that the past 3 years where we have had all three series ran at Talladega during the fall portion of the season, during playoff time. That will not be the case this year. But with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, who do I think is going to win the Truck Series race at Talladega? Truck races at Talladega are always a very, very big crapshoot, and I'm just going to go for a random winner. I'm not going to really spend a whole lot of time procrastinating my pick, and I'm just going to say Grant Enfinger will win at Talladega and punch himself into the championship four, or punch his ticket into the championship four, not punch himself. Grant Enfinger, I hope you don't punch yourself, buddy. That would not be good. But yeah, Grant Enfinger is my pick to win at Talladega this weekend. Don't ask me why. Truck Series races are just crapshoots, so I just see Grant Enfinger winning. Now for the Cup race this weekend, ladies and gentlemen. And I've actually planned out my pick pretty well compared to what I have for the Truck Series. There's going to be a lot of drivers fighting for points, fighting for a chance to win. I mean, it's a super speedway race. It's Talladega. It's going to get wild and crazy. But I think that there is only one driver who can get this done. And his last win came at Talladega. And that is none other, ladies and gentlemen, the 6 of Brad Keselowski. Brad Keselowski has been really good at plate tracks this year. He is a 6-time winner at Talladega. Correct me if I'm wrong. He is, his first win literally came there, and he came oh so close to winning at Daytona, which was the last super speedway race that RFK ran on, which, by the way, RFK did go to victory lane with. But I do have an RFK car winning this weekend, and it's not Chris Buescher either, even though I like Chris Buescher. I want to see Brad Keselowski get it back to victory lane. He is definitely due for a win, and with how he's been running as of late compared to what he had last year, it has been so much better for Brad Keselowski. His win is not only, it's not a question of if, it's a question of when. So that is my pick for the Cup Series race at Talladega, the Cup Series playoff race, I might add. For this weekend, ladies and gentlemen, and that is Brad Keselowski. So for trucks, I have Grant Enfinger, and for Cup, I have Brad Keselowski. With that being said, ladies and gentlemen, that'll do it for this week's episode of the Checkers or Wreckers podcast. we had a lot to uncover in today's episode, so I'm glad you could enjoy it. With all that being said, ladies and gentlemen, thank you guys so much for watching this week's episode of the Checkers and Records podcast. As always, I am your host, Carter Leonard, and I will see you guys next time as we preview for the round of 12 elimination race at the Charlotte Roval. Bye-bye.